Please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, India has taken a big step towards becoming a more equal society. The 157-year-old law which discriminated against same-sex relations has now gone. Gay sex is not a crime anymore. Section 377 has been partially struck down unanimously by a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court. In a verdict that runs into 493 pages, the court has termed Section 377, which criminalizes homosexuality, as unconstitutional. And it is struck down partially. Sexual activity with animals is still an offence. The Chief Justice of India, Dipak Misra, wrote 166 pages in his judgment saying, and I quote, "I am what I am, so take me as I am. Sexual orientation is natural. Constitutional morality must guide us all." Justice Rohindra Nariman asked the government to help remove the stigma in society around homosexuality. He said, and I quote, "The government of India must take active steps to disseminate the judgment and create awareness against the prejudice." Government officials will receive sensitization is also part of what Justice Nariman has suggested. Perhaps the strongest statement is coming from Justice Indu Malhotra, who said, and I quote, "History owes an apology to the LGBT community. They were denied the fundamental right to equality, the right against discrimination, and the right to live with dignity." And before we delve deeper into this landmark verdict, here are the sights and sounds from across the country on what has been a seminal moment for equality and the Constitution of India. Well, a 150-year-old provision on the statute book now being read down by the apex court of this country. We are now joined by one of the counsels for the petitioners in this matter, Arvind Dattar. Mr. Dattar, appreciate you joining us here on the program. I want to go back to what we heard from Justice Indu Malhotra and link that to one of your arguments that you made in court. You said, unlike the earlier judgment where the petitioner was an NGO, NAS Foundation, the present petitioners are directly affected by the penal provisions of Section 377. They are actually apprehending their arrest thereunder. Justice Indu Malhotra has basically said that the society owes an apology to the LGBTQ community for years of stigma imposed on them. Have we not clearly understood, has India not understood the fear and the sense of anguish that this community has had to live with so far?
I guess so, because the Delhi High Court judgment was by NAS Foundation, and it was NGO which tried to stop the prosecutions and so on. And unfortunately, though the judgment came in 2009, it was reversed by the Supreme Court in 2013. And now 5 years down the line, a larger bench has put the clock back, and virtually what the Delhi High Court said is now upheld. But till the Supreme Court gave the judgment, that is from 2013 to 2018, every person who was gay was potentially a criminal every day. He could be arrested at any point of time, even if he was in a same-sex relationship by consent in the privacy of his home. Yes, so now, because the section was on the statute book, and the punishment could be up to life imprisonment or 10 years, so it's a very draconian case, and there was enormous potential for harassment. But though I don't have the data of, as to how many cases were falsely foisted or whatever, but then you're as per the law at that time, you were a criminal, you see, potential criminal.
Well, you were a criminal until this afternoon when the Supreme Court struck Section 377 down. I want to now talk about what next. This has clearly been a historic judgment, but perhaps the right of privacy paved the way for the judgment from the Supreme Court today. I want to read into what Justice Chandrachud has said, that decriminalizing Section 377 is but the first step. To your mind, what follows? What is next now?
For a start, because of this judgment, suppose you're in public employment, you can't be dismissed from service on the ground that you have a same-sex relationship. I don't think in terms of jobs, either the private or the public sector can deny you employment on this ground. Similarly, for housing, for other rights which citizens have got, they are on the same footing as every one of us. So everything which you and I are entitled to, they'll be entitled to. You can't say that because you're having this same-sex relationship, I will deal with you differently. That's point number one. The other issue now which is going to loom on the horizon is what about marriage, what about adoption and the other issues. Yes, but actually when this matter was first referred to the Constitution bench, I had argued and we had agreed that we will confine our arguments to the validity of 377 and only in the context of adult same-sex relationship. We said as far as sex with children is concerned, bestiality is concerned, that is completely unacceptable and we will not argue. So the reference to the Constitution bench was only on a very, very limited point.
Well, you've preempted my question. I know that the mandate, or at least the brief to the Supreme Court, was to look at Section 377, whether this was constitutionally not valid, the criminalization of gay sex. But I want to go beyond that, because what Justice Chandrachud seemed to be alluding to is that the government should not have a hands-off approach any longer. And the government had told the court that in this matter it will go along with what the court decides, but should there be any conversation or dialogue on taking this beyond criminalization or decriminalization to rights like marriage, adoption, etc., then the government will get involved. Is that the next step?
Yes, I think we may go partly the same route as the United States Supreme Court, which first decriminalized homosexuality, then they validated same-sex marriages and so on and so forth. But I think even in the US, I think it's for the legislature to make a same-sex marriage valid. It is for the legislature to say that same-sex couples can adopt a child. And I think these are much more serious issues which require legislation by Parliament after consulting all the stakeholders. I don't think it's for the judiciary to decide that they can be a valid marriage or a valid adoption, because you'll require amendments to the Marriage Act, the adoption laws and so on. It's a far serious issue which is never in consideration before this court.
Right, so that could perhaps be the next step, but this has been a long, hard-fought battle, and we don't know whether the government, parliamentarians, have the resolve to take this any further, at least at this point in time. We're now joined by Anjali Gopalan, the founder and executive director of NAS Foundation, with us, and also Anuranjita Kumar, MD and HR head at Global International Hubs at the Royal Bank of Scotland. Thanks very much for joining us. Anjali, I want to come to you. I'm looking at the timeline of this matter. 2001 is when the NAS Foundation filed its petition in the Delhi High Court. 2003, the Delhi High Court dismissed the NAS Foundation's plea. 2006, the Supreme Court instructed the Delhi High Court to reconsider the case. 2009, the Delhi High Court ruled to decriminalize homosexuality. And then 2012, the High Court order was turned down by the Supreme Court. You have fought a very, very long and hard battle, Anjali. As you sit here reading those 500 pages that the Supreme Court has put together in its judgment on this matter, what runs through your mind?
Listen, I haven't yet read those 500 pages. I haven't even started, but that's something I am raring to do. But all I can tell you is that for me, this has been an incredible day. 2003, then 2009, the fabulous judgment, then 2013, that scary judgment. And at that point is when I actually lost hope for the first time in this whole process. So today what happened has actually, it made me feel so proud somehow and so full of hope again. It's been an incredible day, seriously. Though having
it
said
certainly
this,
has
I
been an
must say this,
incredible
Shri,
day. But Anjali,
that I think just
yes.
one battle has ended.
Yes, go ahead.
No. But it's just the end of one battle, and now many more have to start. Because as the earlier person was saying, it's really, now when we start looking at rights that people should have access to, like the right to marry, the right to adopt, all of that, that is really going to be a tough battle. But it has to be done.
Yeah, and that's the question. But that's the question that I was asking Arvind Dattar, who is a petitioner in this matter as well, I mean a counsel for the petitioners in this matter. And I pointed out what Justice Chandrachud has said in his order, saying that decriminalization is but the first step. But Anjali Gopalan, given the position that the government took in this, which was basically a cop-out, saying that, look, we'll go with whatever the court decides to do, but when it comes to rights, we want to have that dialogue, and that is a separate matter altogether. Do you believe that there is political will, resolve to actually go anywhere beyond this?
I don't know. It's very difficult to say. But I think that shouldn't stop us from taking the battle forward. Because it is going to be a long process. But if you don't do it, what option do you have? There's no reason for anyone in this country not to have equal rights, period. In my head, I'm very clear about that. That why would we deny rights to a section of the population? Based on what? And today, I think the Supreme Court has opened that door for us. And we must make use of it.
Okay, so the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice basically saying that the Constitution must prevail. It doesn't matter what the majoritarian morality has to say in this matter. Let me go across to Aranjita as well. Aranjita, let's talk about the practical implications of this order now. Arvind Dattar talking about how people can no longer be discriminated on the basis of this, at least in the workplace. Now, Royal Bank of Scotland has been one of the few corporations that's actually put policies in place. Explain to me what you've been able to do, how successful that has been, and what kind of sensitization is really required in the workplace to make this work on the ground.
Yeah, first of all, I think it's a big moment for India, and a lot has been spoken about, everybody feeling very optimistic and proud. I want to just express my gratitude to all the activists and people who've really fought this hard battle and being so resilient and perseverant. I think as corporates, we have a moral obligation to support this journey. RBS has been committed much before the judgment, as is known in the market. We had been committed to the extent of equally distributing all our benefits across, any section or any vertical of diverse populations. So for LGBTQ community, for example, if you are to get out in the market today and get an insurance policy, well, not today, but prior to today, it was next to impossible. So we took the first step much earlier, wherein we said this policy will be applicable to everybody, whether it's medical, it's life insurance, to same-sex partners, and it would be funded through the P&L. I think the important bit is not doing that or not framing the policy. The important bit was being able to come and talk out about it. I'll be honest with you, I think when we were kind of going to go out in the market with this, people were worried that we will get a backlash as a corporate. But I think if we really believed in it, we shouldn't be scared about talking about it in the market, as did so many activists. So that was our little contribution to this battle. I think the implication of today's judgment is huge. I think it's a great momentum it will build in terms of decriminalization, which has already been spoken about. I don't think from a hiring perspective, we're allowed to ask too many details, and that should continue because this is first step, but the social mindsets on these changes take much longer. But I do believe that as people feel more comfortable about stating who they are, it's on us to make sure the environment is more inclusive, it's safe, it's secure, it's not judgmental, it's something they feel comfortable coming to workplace every day. And apart from that, I think the whole benefits rationalization being applicable to people equally has to just absolutely continue.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you. But Aranjita, you know, you said that when you started this, you thought that there would be a backlash. But what has the response been so far?
Actually, very good. You know, I've actually had more people from the community wanting to come and work for us, because that small statement going out in the market sometime beginning of this year gave them a sense of security. So we've actually had people reach out to us from LGBTQ community because they saw us as a workplace which is willing to be more inclusive and having them on board in a more safe and secure environment. I think it's also about a bit of education, which we've had to go through in the organization about what this community is about, and a lot of fears internally or externally is about just from sheer ignorance. So that was a journey we undertook, but the response has been fabulous from the community, and actually no backlash, not from the people in the country, and so far so good, to be honest.
Well, that's good to hear. But on that point, Anjali, let me come to you and I quote to you what Justice Nariman has said in his order. He says the government should give wide periodic publicity to the judgment so that the stigma is reduced and finally removed. Also, he calls for training of government officials to sensitize them to this community and what they have had to live with so far. In terms of the practical aspects of operationalizing this order, I mean, changing social mindsets is an important aspect, but also to get government officials, civic authorities, the police, to look at this community differently. What do you make of the suggestion and the recommendation that's come in from Justice Nariman and the way forward?
I think it's a very good point that he has brought up, and it's very doable, by the way. If the political will is there, very doable. Because you're looking at, for example, we've been doing sensitization training on transgender issues with the entire Rajasthan police. We've been training Delhi police for years now. So it's not an impossibility. It's just a question of getting it into the system. And if we really want to do it, we can do it. There's no reason for us to think that we can't do it. But we need to start looking at it at different levels. For example, I think we really need to start from the school system itself. Unfortunately, we do not have any mechanism. We do not have any kind of sex education in the school system. That has been denied to our children totally. Even age-appropriate information is not given to them. So if we are serious about changing attitude, we have to really work at different levels. And definitely the whole system, the government system, there's no reason that they can't introduce it. Doctors, you have doctors who are trained. You include LGBTI issues into their training program. Why is it so difficult to do that? It's just a question of having the will to do it. And once you have the will to do it, there's absolutely no reason it won't happen.
Well, absolutely. We do hope that the government will take seriously what Justice Nariman has had to say in his order. Let's also welcome Keshav Suri and Neha Nagpal on the program. Keshav and Neha, appreciate you joining us. Keshav, we've been looking at visuals of you celebrating through the morning. There was lots of dancing and cake cutting that we saw on our screen. So congratulations to you and Neha, who's your counsel.
Yep.
What does today mean to you, Keshav, personally?
Thank you. Oh my God, it means the world. It means that I don't live in the shadows anymore. I'm not a fringe person anymore in this country. I'm not somebody that is, on the wrong side of the law anymore. I mean, it's a victory, not for me. I mean, it's for the country. It's for a greater cause. It's for the world, for us.
Keshav, it's interesting that you can today sit here and laugh about the fact that you're no longer on the wrong side of the law, but I'm sure that it hasn't been easy for you. It hasn't been easy for members of this community to have to live not just with the stigma, but with the fear.
Yep. It's not. This is a 20 to 30-year-old fight. I mean, you know, there are people and cases from whether it's the Naz Foundation to the Humsafar Trust to all the people that have actually where Section 377 has actually destroyed their lives. It's of course I'm joking and laughing right now about it because I really want to celebrate, but it's been a tough and a long fight. And I got to say that, you know, personally for me, one of the reasons why I've been able to be so proud about this day and to celebrate today is because of my family and because of my friend like Neha, who has actually sat here and wrote the writ petition for me.
Yes, so Neha, let me ask you now, because, you know, while it is a big moment for Keshav, it's also a big moment for many of you, lawyers, activists, people like Anjali Gopalan, who've been fighting this battle for over 2 decades now. I want to quote to you what Justice Chandrachud says. He says, this case is much more than just decriminalizing a provision. It is about an aspiration to realize constitutional rights and equal existence. What are the implications, truly, Neha, of this order?
Of course, this is, I mean, I have to say that each one of the judgments, all 4 of the concurring opinions, are phenomenal. They lay the path for, you know, a future a lot more inclusionism, in the future that, I mean, you know, we look at a state where there could be equal rights and there should be equal rights. So it is, I think Justice Chandrachud has very correctly laid that path, shown the way. And Justice Nariman has also sort of created the environment now where there is education, where there is awareness that has to come about now in terms of a Supreme Court direction to sensitize, you know, children in schools and sensitize the police. And also government employees. So I think it's a step in the right direction, and there's a lot to be hopeful for.
Yeah. I think equality needs to be accorded to this community. I think the biggest thing that came out today was an apology from Justice Malhotra to the LGBTQ community.
That was, I think, the magnanimity of the Supreme Court.
Exactly. Yeah, for all the injustices that have been accorded. We've been a very tolerant community, clearly. You know, I personally am married. My husband is French. And it's unfair that in France we are equal citizens, but we're not here. And today is the first day that I'm actually proud to say that I'm an Indian, because we've really opened the chapter for equality. By having the judges turn around and say that, well, you know what, not only do we need to apologize to this community, but we need to sit over there and mainstream them. We need to accord them equal rights.
I think what the Supreme Court's also done is given, once again, has given a stamp of approval to the right of privacy, because I think it's the Chief Justice's judgment, opinion, where he said that any acts under 377 consensual between a man and a man and a woman and a woman are decriminalized. So I think it's once again Supreme Court has come forward to uphold the right to privacy, and it's definitely a historic day.
It is a historic day, but Anjali, let me ask you, since you spoke of the fact that this battle cannot end here, and that is what we're hearing from Keshav and Neha as well. So, you know, are we likely to see Naz Foundation, Keshav Suri move the court again, or is this now going to have to go through the route of Parliament? Because that is the suggestion that Arvind Datar seemed to give us here on the program, that this will now have to go through Parliament.
Well, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. My point is that now all of us need to come together, form larger coalitions, ensure that we take this forward. Don't sit back. Now is the time while the iron is hot. We really need to strike. And definitely people like Keshav and whoever else wants to be in a situation where they're married to their partners need to push this forward. There's no doubt in my mind, and we shouldn't waste time on this. Earlier the better is the way I look at it. And there's one more thing I want to say about Section 377, which I think is very important. I'm glad that the courts did not set it aside, because our rape laws are not gender neutral. So male-on-male rape needed Section 377, and so did sexual abuse of animals. These are the two areas that we would have had a huge problem if Section 377 had been removed. So I'm just really so grateful for the way this entire judgment has come down to us. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's only partially being struck down for consensual adult
definitely a very balanced judgment.
Absolutely. I'll give the final word to Keshav and you,
I'm madly in love with Anjali.
You know, since Anjali... You're madly in love with Anjali. All right, Anjali Gopalan, here's Keshav Suri saying he's madly in love with you. So I'll end then by asking you, Keshav. Anjali said that, you know,
I would not be able to have this conversation without people like her.
There's clearly a lot of love that we're feeling, not just in our studios, but all around today. But let me end by asking you, Keshav, strike while the iron is hot. Are you going to move court now for equal rights?
Of course. I'm not going to stop here. This is just the beginning of the rest of our lives.
Oh, good.
And you know, I mean, something that Menika said so beautifully when she was arguing. She said that, you know, so many of the petitioners' partners have moved on, have passed away, and have not even been able to see, and lives have gone by, and 377 still exists. You know, I'm not going to waste time. I don't want that to happen. Like I said, this is the beginning of the rest of the LGBTQI community in India's lives.
Yeah. Well, here's wishing each one of you the very best of luck, and thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV18 to talk about an issue that I'm sure has caused a great degree of pain and anguish, but today is a moment of celebration, and clearly a moment that India must celebrate and mark together. Anjali Gopalan, Aranjita, Neha and Keshav Suri, thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV18 as we move towards a more equal country today. With that, it is time for us to wrap up this CNBC TV18 special. There's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere.